Okay, before I get started, I want to say I'm sorry I didn't do Takeover Brooklyn. I just didn't want to overburden myself with so much content. I knew this was going to be a large chunk of my day. And I just didn't want to burn myself out. Okay, I'm sorry. But I am going to say this. Was this show better than Takeover Brooklyn? No. Nope. I'm not saying Takeover Brooklyn was the best show they ever produced. It was a damn good show. But comparing it to SummerSlam, nope. I'm going to be honest here. I'm a New Yorker. I live in the Bronx. And I can tell you, seeing how the crowd acted throughout most of the night, almost all of the night, by the time they were at the end of that show, most of them were tired. The others just wanted to boo. And when it finally happened, and you know what I'm talking about, there were no cheers. I didn't hear any. None. So this show was not better than Brooklyn. Was it good? I'll say on a scale to 1 to 10, it was a 7. Maybe 6. Maybe I'll reverse that. 6 or 7. I'm not saying it was great. It was okay. Maybe a little above average. But it was not great. I'm sorry. If anyone says this is great, tell me below what was the greatest thing about it. Because the way I saw it, the crowd was as hot as they could make it because of what happened to Brooklyn yesterday. And honestly, when you see how this show was, it was not great. It was average, maybe slightly above average. That's the truth. Let's do the kickoff really quickly. The mixed tag of Almost, Vega, Rusev, and Lana. Let's make this really simple. This was not about the match. Because when it comes down to it, there's no real stakes here. They were just given some time to be spotlighted. Does not mean this really meant anything. Really didn't. This meant nothing. And I'm seeing it for what it is. I know you guys still think Rusev Day is great. But let's be honest here. Once they decide to split all three of them up, Rusev, Aiden English, and Lana. Now that Rusev and Aiden English are not together, look where he is now. I'm not saying he wasn't on the kickoff show before with Aiden English, but at least he was more on the show than he was on the kickoff show without Aiden English. So you guys tell me if I'm wrong or not. The heels won, but what does it mean? They'll continue to feud, but there's no stakes. Nothing's important. So let's move on to the match that was pretty good. The Cruiserweight Championship of Cedric Alexander and Goulash. Now, I don't watch 205 Live. I'm not going to lie about it. I still remember these guys, but I don't watch it. I don't have the time to be able to watch 205 Live, do SmackDown Live, and then do a review of 205 Live after that. It's too much for me. Even if I do it the next day, it's exhausting. So I haven't really watched the product in months. Just like NXT. But I'm going to say this. When it came to the match, it was good. Gulak did a very good job, and I actually believe that he should have won the match. I think it would have been better for him to win. But I gotta be honest. Gulak, I'm mispronouncing the guy's name because his trunks look like crap. What the hell was that? His boots in his trunk may have matched, but he looked terrible in them. But as it stands, it was a good match. Now, let's get this last thing done. Revival versus B-Team. Why? I didn't care. B-Team, I'm going to say this about both teams. Revival is a throwback to the 1980s. And I'm telling you this. The WWE is not doing the 1980s. And they're barely doing the 90s. They're doing some weird crap that doesn't really compare to when even the baddest times of the 90s were. And they're booking it similar to it almost, but not exact. The good stuff of the 80s and 90s are not being touched by the WWE. If they did, we would have a lot more fun. Roman Reigns is not being booked like Hulk Hogan. Hulk knew how to make the crowd happy. This guy does not because of the booking. But anyway, when it comes to B-Team, they're more interesting in the back. and rarely wrestling. When it comes to Revival, they should be wrestling and have very few moments in the back. They should be kicking everyone's ass and taking their names. The Revival shouldn't be talking much. B-Team should. The Revival should be wrestling. B-Team should not be wrestling. Not because they can't do it. It's because they're a comedic tag team, not a tag team. So they should have been stripped of the titles. But Revival lost. B-Team won. Who cares? Let's move to the beginning of the main card. Oh my gosh. What? When you look at the first match of Seth Rollins and Dolph Ziggler, I'm so damn sure. I've heard so many people say, Dean's turning heel. You watch this show, he's going to beat up on Seth, and we're going to have everything we're going to have. What did I say? What did I say? You actually believe they're going to turn him heel on this show? Are you serious? Are you serious? I should laugh at all your asses. For anyone who believed that Dean was going to be turned from face to heel. Stupid. Just like how Ryback used to say, stupid, stupid. You actually think that WWE is going to give you what you want. They're going to give you exactly what you don't want. Because they didn't turn his ass heel. Maybe they will in the subsequent shows. Maybe they'll turn him heel on this Raw. I don't think they will, but they may turn him Raw eventually, if you're lucky. Maybe. But you can get what you want. And that hurt the match. Because when you really see this match, it was not that great. It was average. Yes, the very beginning was extremely slow. And I'm the type of person, as I've always said, I like a balance of psychology, grapple wrestling, and high flying. If you go out of balance with any one of the three when they should be all included in a match, it makes it look bad. And this match had more psychology in it than high flying or general grapple wrestling. They were trying to win over the crowd with that. Now mind you, the crowd did improve later in the match, but the beginning was dead. And if anybody says it wasn't dead, review it again. And next to the cheering when they first came out, tell me when they cheered other than that. Because they didn't. Only later did they begin to cheer near the end of the match. And then, what did you get? I mean, I see Seth winning. What's the point? Yeah, I think he's a 2-time champ or 3-time champ. Does it matter? Because Seth was supposed to do something special this part of the year. Everybody and their mother believed that Seth Rollins was going to the World Championship or the Universal Championship. I know I said the World Championship even though he's on Raw, but they could have made him jump boat to make it more interesting. Nope, he stayed on Raw. He was supposed to go for Universal title. He's done nothing. This is what you get. We move on. Let's move on to New Day versus the Bludgeon Brothers, which was the worst situation out of any match. You have the Bludgeon Brothers, who have been packaged badly. You have both of them talk. You didn't let them talk when they should have talked. And now you've been letting them talk together when it should have been only one. That was the major problem for me personally. Anyone else thinks they're just boring because Vince made them boring like they're 80s wrestlers, and they're not. Look, I keep hearing this so many times from so many people, in particular Galex Men, saying they're wrestling like 80s wrestlers. No, they're not. I remember how 80s wrestlers wrestled. They didn't wrestle the way they wrestle the style they're wrestling now. They wrestle a 90 to 2000 style match. They don't even get booked like 80s wrestlers. They don't. They don't act like 80s wrestlers. They don't get booked like 80s wrestlers. And they're not 80s wrestlers. They are wrestlers that have been put out there with nothing. No character development. No real direction. No really feeling like they're a destructive force like pretty much like Kane. Even Kane has better character development than them. Not just because of his past, but because they make sure at least they have something for him. They have had nothing. So when you go into this match, which was really good, I did enjoy it. But in the end, what do you get? The Bludgeon Brothers had to cheat to win. Because Eric had to go outside, grab that, what was it, that, I forgot the name of that type of hammer. But that very large hammer, and basically drive it into either Xavier Woods or I think it went into the gut of Big E. I could be wrong. I can't remember right now. There's so much content to try and remember. I hope I got an image of it. I don't think I do. But in the end, what does that give us? Nothing. What should have happened, the New Day shouldn't have won. You should have just put the bar there and let them win the titles. And I know a lot of people say you can't put two heel tag teams up against each other. In this situation, it didn't matter. You could have put both of them up against each other, let the bar win. They would have naturally been faces in this match. To be honest, they would have became faces. Automatically flip. Because people would like the bar more than the Bludgeon Brothers. And they would have won, and then they could flip right back to heel on SmackDown. No problem. No one would have complained. But I'm complaining now because this should have never happened. And it was boring. Moving on. Strowman versus KO. Dude. This was a squash match. They just wanted to get this out of the way to make Braun Strowman look interesting. Which, as we know later, didn't matter. But in the end, I feel sorry for Kevin Owens. If I have an image of Kevin Owens, it's in my face right now. That's if I have an image of him. A image of him in this match. If not, I'll have to use a stock image that I have. I think I have a stock image with him with the U.S. title. I feel sorry for him. Now he's on my shoulder. I feel sorry for him. This meant nothing for him. This is a joke. I feel so sorry for him. But in a sense, I shouldn't feel sorry for him because in the end, he wanted to be in the WWE. This is what you get. You don't get booked right by Vince. And you definitely don't get booked by... You don't get booked very well by Road Dogg or Vince. You're screwed. Let's move on. And let's go to... I don't want to do these all in order. I'm doing this out of order. Let's do The Miz versus Daniel Bryan. The match everyone anticipated to be amazingly good because of the build in this story. Honestly, no. Nope. I know I'm going to get heat for this, but the match was not that good. It was okay. But here's the problem for me personally. The build for Daniel Bryan has been 100% wrong. He should have been struggling before he met The Miz. Because when you see this match, he didn't act like someone who was struggling, who had to prove anything to anyone. What did Daniel Bryan have to prove to The Miz? Zero. Nothing. Nothing he had to prove to The Miz. So they booked him like he had to prove something. They booked him like he had to prove anything, which he didn't. He already proved everything he needed to when he came back. So the build from the time he came back and went up against Big Cass, went to try and get Money in the Bank, went up against Samoa Joe, made no freaking difference. It made no difference. None. He should have been losing and losing and losing until this match with The Miz, and then lose to The Miz, and then the segment afterward with Brie, which I'll get to her in a few minutes, with Brie would have been more understandable, because then his frustration would be understandable, because since he came back, maybe he had one win, but every other win was a loss, or better yet, he just lost every match. And everyone hounded him because he kept losing matches. And losing matches. And losing matches. And The Miz belittled him. And then this animosity for 8 years would make better sense. So when you see this, even though it's a good match, it was a damn good match. You can see most of it been scrolling by me for a while now. But it didn't really mean anything. And now let's get to Brie. Now we saw Brie and Nikki in the interview with Renee Young. And then we saw them in the crowd after that. Sponsoring Evolution. Which I didn't give a damn about. Because it's a joke. They don't book the women right, so Evolution is going to be a joke. Now, this is the reason why I've been bringing up Brie and Nikki. Because of what happened with Ronda Rousey and Alexa Bliss afterward. I can get into the match in a moment. When it was Michael Cole who clearly stated that they were the trailblazers of the women's revolution, I wanted to break my freaking TV, because the true person that is there, because I'm sure she's in the back, and that was Mickie James, is the true trailblazer, and she should have been allowed to come out and hug Ronda Rousey. Yes, she's a heel. But in this situation, you could have had some of the women in the back come out, and you could easily have, even if she didn't give her a hug, she could have gotten on the mic and said, I'm one of the original women that made you, and I'm proud of you. That would have been more interesting than seeing the Bella Twins, who are nothings. They were brought in as eye candy. And I'm not taking anything away from them trying to become better, because they did become better. They weren't great wrestlers, but they became better. They were not freaking trailblazers. Mickie James was. And that was freaking insulting. That pissed me off. But let's go on to Ronda Rousey and Alexa Bliss. What do we get in the match? Whew. It was... Look, I don't hate Ronda Rousey, but I do believe that she was not ready for this. She was acting more like an MMA fighter than a wrestler. And mind you, it is working with her character and her persona. But there's going to be a time when she's going to have to really wrestle like a wrestler, because that's going to get old fast. She's not a Shamrock. She's not a Kurt Angle. She's not even a Chad Gable, who went to the Olympics in 2012. At least he adapted most of the work he did, like a Kurt Angle, or even a Shamrock to a certain extent. Shamrock, even though was a dick, at least he made sure that he did some of his work similar to an actual wrestler eventually. This is still early for her. And this really wasn't the right time for her to do this. Because when you see the match, and it was not bad, seeing Alexa Bliss get her ass flipped everywhere was interesting. Seeing when Alexa's double-jointed arms was bent backwards to make sympathy so great that finally the crowd started being interesting. Because let's be honest here, the majority of the crowd from the very beginning, they cheered for Ronda, but then they died down. And then the only time when they made any noises is when she did the judo flips. Because everything in between was blank. Empty. And then that little bit that she did when she was about to give her I can't remember what is it, a Death Valley Driver, I believe it was. I can't remember the name of it. But basically when she gave it to Alexa Bliss, she said, are you ready? Like she was actually asking friendly like. That was a bit of a surprise. That shows how green she still is. She didn't say, are you ready to get it, woman? No, she says, are you ready? Boom. And even the coach had to say, oh, it's not nice. She had to say, are you ready? That shows this was not the right time for her. And I'm not forgetting about Natalya and what happened to Jim the Anvil Neidhart. I want to go away from this for a moment and just say this. When I found out, for me personally, it shocked the living hell out of me to know that he's dead. I mean, I was shocked. It upset me. And my feelings go out to Natalya and her family. Because I did love Jim the Anvil Neidhart a lot as a kid. I think the first time I saw him I was 14 years old, back in 1985, when he was in the Heart Foundation. And I liked him. He just had a personality that was just like, you just gotta hate him, but you like him. That's it. And for Natalya wearing his jacket was really a nice tribute to him. And also good that when the match was over and Ronda did the armbar and she basically hugged Natalya, Natalya didn't attack her. I think that was a wise thing to do, but to be honest, the crowd didn't really care. They were done. I think it was a combination because the show was so long and it was not as interesting as everyone thought it was going to be with Ronda Rousey. And her hubby showed up. and she jumped onto that retaining wall, the padded retaining wall, gave that man a hug, a kiss, and a grab. That was okay. But it shows how inexperienced, and it also shows that she's not ready for this. This should have not been done this year. It should have been done next year. The beginning to the middle of next year would have been better for her. But that's just me. Let's move on. Okay. Let's do the match that I know I'm going to also get flack for. Becky Lynch versus Charlotte versus Bella. Carmella. And I gotta say this. This was the best match I've seen Carmella be in. And it doesn't mean she was good. This is the best match I've seen her in because she was at least competent enough that she didn't look 100% botchy. So I will commend her in that. So at least she did do a decent job, not looking so bad to make everyone else look bad. When it came to Charlotte, you saw who she dealt with the most. She dealt with Becky. Like I said, Becky and Charlotte are the only ones that could work that match. Not because they were better than Carmella, which they were to a certain extent, but because Charlotte doesn't work well with people she's not highly familiar with. And even though she's wrestled Carmella a lot, Carmella is bad. She's not meant to be a constant working wrestler. She's a manager that should wrestle periodically. So she's just bad. So that would make Charlotte look awful. That's why she dealt with Becky the most. Now, it was interesting to see that Carmella was trying to do psychology and mess with them both when she smacked the Becky in the back of the neck and made it look like Charlotte did it. It was okay. That really did help the situation along. But I'm going to be honest here. I didn't want to see Charlotte win. Because honestly, Charlotte should have never been in the match in the first place. I'm being honest here. When you see that Charlotte wins, Becky gives her a hug, and then Becky goes ape shit and attacks her. Let's be honest, she's not a heel. Becky's not a heel. Becky is a face who's just pissed off, knowing that she got treated badly. Because when it comes down to it, this was a smack in the face to Becky Lynch. For real. This isn't just storyline. This is being honest. Becky should have not had a triple threat. It should have been Becky and Carmella. Charlotte being thrown in there just because she's Charlotte Flair and has some new titties built into her. And I don't care if anyone gets mad at me for saying I'm not being sexist. You see her in my face. Her breasts are bigger than they were before. She got an implant replacement because she burst the last one. And now she's back with bigger breasts. And now the damn championship. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She's right there. I'm sorry. She doesn't deserve the title. She's been gone for 2 months. They gave Becky the reins to go and do something. And guess what? The minute Charlotte comes back, they throw it in there. They give her the title. And they supposedly turn Becky heel when everyone is going to see her as a face. And they're going to see her as an angry face that got screwed. And they're going to try and book it as she's a heel now. And she's going to work as a heel. But everyone's still going to know that she's a face and she got screwed by Vince McMahon and the company to make Charlotte look good. And that's just sad. Now, let's move on to, let's see, what am I forgetting here? Samoa Joe versus, I gotta say this. This was the best match of the night. This was, if I gotta say this when it comes to Samoa Joe, the man is great. He one day will be in a Hall of Fame. If it's not this Hall of Fame of WWE, he will be in a Hall of Fame because he's earned it. If you saw his Chronicles of Samoa Joe, they just released it. It's like 45 minutes long. I saw it. Now, of course, it's still going with his storyline. Most of it is real life. It showed his real mother and his real life. But the rest of it, near the end, was storyline. That's the truth. It's majority of it is still, at the end, storyline, even though his actual personality is kind of like that. He still went with storyline. It had to, because it needed to be done. So, what do we get in this match? And you're going to see, if I got a lot of images, you're going to be seeing it scroll right now. You got great work, but admittedly at first it was slow. And I was going, they can't do another Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles. When are these guys going to pick it up? The crowd at first was cheering at one point TNA, which I wish they had continued that to rub it into the WWE's faces to let them know that these two were homegrown. Because they deserve it. The international community needs to see that Impact Wrestling deserves some recognition. Even I may have it right next to them. I don't know. I may have it. But it would have been nice to hear more TNA or Impact Wrestling chants. But near the middle is when it finally began to pick up. And by the end, it was an amazingly good match. Particularly by the time when they went to the outside and Samoa Joe said to Wendy, AJ's wife, with his daughter, "Don't worry, your daddy's coming home, but he may not be coming home. He's out. I'll be your daddy." That got his blood boiling once you saw his head cut open. He exploded. He basically DQ'd the match. They kept getting, he kept beating up on Samoa Joe. It ends on a high note when it comes to this. It's 10 times better than all the matches between Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles. I'm being honest. Comparing this match to AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura, AJ Styles and Samoa Joe was better put together. I'm sorry, it just was. Whether they didn't want some AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura to go all out, or they did, but there was something wrong where they just weren't really clicking, it made no difference. This trumps them all, which really made the show for me. At least this part. After it all was done, AJ grabbed his title, went to his wife. His wife would tell him, "Enough, that's it, let's leave." They leave. So that gives us a good story going into this SmackDown Live, which we didn't get anything for Raw in storyline at all. Zero storyline for Raw. And you actually think Dolph Ziggler and Seth Rollins was a story? Nope, they'll just keep doing matches, and you're going to still see Dean as a face. Now, let's move on. The Baron Corbin versus, and I was surprised to see Demon Finn. That was a nice little surprise. Wasn't a shock, it was a surprise. It was good to see the Demon finally brought out. And this is a major problem with Finn Balor. Either they tell him to just keep coming out there smiling, or they tell him you cannot use the Demon, we don't want to deal with it. He needs to be the Demon. Even though he's still pretty much still Finn Balor, just squatting a lot. And in this case, at least he was a little more animated when he showed his tongue, which is in my face. He did a lot of tongue job. Oh my gosh. I can't believe I said that. But pretty much, he showed his tongue a lot. The match was very short, and that was a good thing. Now, possibly they're still going to keep this up on this coming Raw. But if they let the Demon out more often, maybe people will care more. But I doubt it. This might be the only time Finn brings out the Demon. Because when it came to Michael Cole, he made it very clear he only comes out when it's necessary. That's why it's all bad. Oh, and Coach said that he loved the paint. Shame he didn't say, "I love the gimmick. Do it more." That would have been better. Now, Jeff Hardy versus Shinsuke Nakamura. And mind you, almost every match that had a title, except for the kickoff show, pretty much had an announcer. This one did not, and it was near the end of the show. That kind of made me think, well, this match doesn't really mean much. And I was right. The match wasn't 100% bad, but the thing was, it didn't really mean much. Not at all. So, when the match was over, and I forgot who won it. Who won that match? It was Shinsuke who won the match. Really didn't mean anything. Because this was still all about Jeff Hardy and Randy Orton, who came out. who was just staring at Jeff Hardy, I'm sorry. He was just staring at him. Now mind you, almost forgot. During the match, there were a few moments where both of them kind of clashed their characters and messed with their characters a little bit. But in general, the match was okay. It wasn't an amazing match. And this wasn't even about Shinsuke. It was about Randy and about Jeff. And that's it. And that's sad. Because where does that leave Shinsuke Nakamura? Nowhere. Now, let's see. I believe I talked about Ronda Rousey already. Yes, I did. I talked about Finn. I talked about Samoa Joe. I talked about The Miz. Elias coming out, breaking his guitar. And getting so pissed off, he started breaking everything. What does that mean? Does that mean his guitar was messed up by Bobby Lashley? I don't know. We'll find out this Raw. Finally! Let's get this over with. The show stopper. That really meant nothing. And I'm not using that for the title. I don't know what title I'm going to use for this review of SummerSlam 2018. I haven't figured that out yet. But this is about Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. And what did we actually get? Nothing. By the time I can't say this is a show because it wasn't that much of a show at the end of the show, at the end of the pay-per-view. Once you see Braun Strowman come out with that briefcase, you knew it's got to be a triple threat. It's got to be. I thought that myself. They're going to do a triple threat to try and make it more interesting. Nope. He says simply, I am going to be waiting out here for whoever wins, and then I'm going to beat the crap out of him because I'm not like everybody else who just come and sneak in. I'm going to face you. Then why didn't you make it a freaking triple threat? That would have been better for the match. Because what did we get? 1 Superman punch, 2 Superman punch, 3 Superman punch, 1 spear, 2 spear, 3 spear, and maybe 4, what was it? German suplexes from Brock Lesnar. Eventually, Roman Reigns takes out Braun Strowman. Then Brock Lesnar F5s Braun Strowman once, which before, one F5 couldn't even keep Braun Strowman down, but it kept him down completely. He threw the briefcase up the ramp, and once he gets back into the ring and Roman Reigns spears him again, it's over. Brock Lesnar loses, Roman Reigns wins, and there's no sign of Braun Strowman. This is going to be over 30 minutes. I'm sorry. I have to say it. This was stupid. And there were no cheers. Once he won, it was silence. Muffled silence because there was nothing but booing, ladies and gentlemen. If you actually thought you heard cheering, it was the most lowest cheers you could hear because the majority of it was muffled silence. No one cared. The music was playing over the crowd and there was nothing. That shows you how much the crowd in New York didn't give a damn. And they didn't. And I don't blame them. Because this was stupid. You should have left Braun Strowman for Raw. And just left him there instead of coming on the show at all. Because doing it like this made it look so bad. This show didn't break even. At all. When this happened, I thought the show was maybe average. A 6, maybe 7. But when I saw this, it went down to a 4. Below average because the ending was so dumb. So before I found out anything, it was maybe a 6 to a 7. But once the ending happened, it went down to a 4. Because it was just bad. But this is just my point of view. You guys tell me below. I hope you enjoyed this very, very, very long SummerSlam review. See ya for SmackDown Live. I am not doing Raw unless something special happens, which I don't think will happen. Have a good day. Have a good night. Peace.